It was 2 a.m. and Jungkook was fast asleep on the couch with the TV left on. As he lay on the couch, he heard a piercing scream that woke him in a jolt and caused him to fall from the couch. He sat himself up hearing the screams and got up, raced down the hall and stopped at the closed door with a frown, preparing himself to see the sight of Taehyung in bed suffering from the traumatizing abuse of Hydra and the memories of his killings. Jimin with Namjoon, Yoongi, and J-Hope left for a mission, and as much as he knew that Jungkook didn't want to be near the former Hydra murderous assassin who killed his parents, Jimin asked his friend to watch over Taehyung and try to be patient and cautious when Taehyung has his mood swings or nightmares of his past. Taehyung looked both fragile and dangerous, but Jimin as usual is always there for him, and seeing the captain with the soldier comforting him and especially kissing him makes Jungkook feel jealous of seeing them together. As much as Jungkook can't find the will in him to forgive Taehyung for the deaths of his parents, he feels a bit of sympathy for the former assassin killer. Jungkook inhaled deeply for the sight to behold, and he opened the door seeing the sight and frowned. Taehyung was wildly tossing and turning with his flesh and metal hands waving in the air, with him groaning and moaning with screams of begging for his attackers in his nightmare to stop with please and screaming no that made Jungkook feel a stab through his heart reactor just imaging what Taehyung was saying and suffering in his nightmare. He slowly walked to the bed, with hands up to touch to try to soothe Taehyung's screams and movements, then rested his hand on Taehyung's chest hearing him groan with a sob. Then he saw Taehyung flinched from his touch. Taehyung, wake up. You're dreaming, it's all just a dream. Wake up, he soothed, but Tae was trapped in his nightmare. No, please, stop. Stop it. Please, no. Get off me, please, don't know. Stop it. Please, please. No, Taehyung mumbled two yells and made a loud shriek that made Jungkook jump. He didn't know how Jimin could handle hearing him suffer like this in his nightmares and being repeatedly woken up by his constant screams. Taehyung, calm down. It is all just a dream. You are safe here. Wake up, Taehyung, you're safe. Snap out of it, Jungkook yelled, trying to get Taehyung to calm down, then said softly with his frown showing and heartbreaking seeing Taehyung suffer. Then he began to stop his screams that turned to cries. Don't, please, I beg you, let me go, please, Taehyung sobbed. Then he whined, feeling Jungkook's hand slowly stroking his sweaty forehead. Jungkook dilated his eyes, feeling how hot Taehyung's forehead was and how sweaty it was as well. He hoped this gentle touch might calm him down. Taehyung, Tae, wake up. Please wake up. You're dreaming. Hear my voice and follow, and please wake up, he said seriously with his eyes showing sympathy and frowning. Taehyung's movements and screams stopped slowly and his cries continued until then he gasped, wide awake with eyes wide and his metal hand grabbing hand touching his fever and sweaty forehead. With his eyes were cold and steel like how when he was Hydra's winter soldier and staring at the owner of the hand that was touching him. Too, nah, he said weakly with strength gone from his nightmare and fever. Jungkook gulped when he saw the cold eyes that were like a robot and saw them looking directly at him ready to attack. Then the eyes became calm and normal and he fought a relieved sigh when he heard Taehyung say his name, and he grinned with a nod. It's me, Taehyung. Taehyung stared at his metal hands with the captive hand in his grip and back at Jungkook, who had his eyes showing relief and pain. Taehyung, Tae, you're hurting me, please let go, he said with a hint of timidness. Taehyung stared at his hand, and with a gasp, he released it, seeing Jungkook holding his hand that was soon covered in a few spots of bruises, and the former assassin killer stared at him with exhaustion and guilt. Jungkook, he tried to apologize as he tried too many times to him, but he didn't have the courage. Jungkook grinned at him holding his bruised hand and nodded. I have to give those kids some credit to give you a weapon that is a part of your body. You have a strong grip with that metal hand and arm of yours, he timidly complimented about Taehyung's arm. Taehyung sighed deeply, rammed his metal fist on the bed and began to rub his human fingers on his forehead. Sorry, he turned his face away from him and looking at the window. It wasn't your fault. Taehyung stared at him and groaned wearily, rubbing his head, feeling a headache. Oh, my head. Jungkook slowly and gently sat Taehyung up and he walked to the bathroom. Finding painkillers and a cup, he filled it with cold water. He returned to Taehyung and handed the pills and water, and Taehyung gulped the pills and water, making a sigh, and stared back at the window while Jungkook stared at the door. Thank you for being here, Taehyung said shyly, and Jungkook gazed at him, seeing a shy smile hiding under his brown strands of hair, and cleared his throat. You're welcome, Jungkook awkwardly said. Then soon the bedroom was filled with silence of uncomfortable awkwardness, until after a few minutes one finally broke the silence. Well, right. Good night, Jungkook said speedily and walked to the door to his room. Taehyung watched him and frowned, hugging the pillow in his arms, already feeling lonely. You're leaving, he said sadly after Jimin and the others left for their mission. Jungkook was the company of his family he has. Jungkook stopped at the doorway and stared at him over his shoulder. Do you want me to leave? Taehyung didn't reply, only shook his head as a no. Please, stay just for a little longer, please, he said, hugging his legs to his chest and hair covering his face but eyes with tears at Jungkook. Jungkook was an avenger, an inventor, not a damn babysitter, but he promised Jimin to look after him while he was away, and Taehyung needed him now, and somewhere he felt like he had to be with Taehyung to keep him steady and calm. He nodded, walked to the bed, and sat on the chair. All right, I'll stay here until you fall asleep. Taehyung smiled with a low sigh. Thank you, he shyly said. Jungkook fought a blush and nodded with a grin. Anytime, Taehyung stared at him, moving his hair behind his ears and facing Jungkook. You can call me Tai, if you want. Jimin, Namjoon, Yoongi, J-Hope. Even Seojin and Seojun call me that, so you can call me that if you like, he shyly said. Jungkook cleared his throat again. Okay, Taehyung then nodded with a smile and stared at the picture of his new family and his boyfriend and frowned in worry. I miss Jimin. Jungkook nodded in understanding, and he missed him too. He would rather have Jimin be here instead of him, not being part of this awkward situation. You think they're all right and they'll be back soon? Taehyung asked in a tone and face of concern. Jungkook then rested his hand on his shoulder. I'm sure they'll be back soon, Taehyung. After all, Jimin is not only Captain in Korea, he is the only one to protect you, especially from someone like me, he playfully said, and Taehyung made a chuckle, scratching the back of his neck. Yeah, good point there, he said, chuckling, and Jungkook smiled hearing him chuckle. Taehyung ended his chuckles, making a sigh, and frowned again, then bowed his head. Cookie, I have been wanting to say these words for a long time, even when I was captured in my memories of Taehyung. I don't wish to hear it, Jungkook said coldly, and Taehyung flinched from the sound of his voice. He has to. He wished he could take it all back, take everything back. But, I have to, he said with a shaken voice, and Jungkook stared at him, then closed his eyes ready to leave. Taehyung, I don't want to hear it. What happened? It happened, Jungkook said coldly, then opened his eyes at him. Even though you killed many people, killed my parents, my mom, he said, even more cold in his voice as his eyes were stabbing Taehyung, who was looking at his metal arm but was shaking. Taehyung inhaled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything, for killing your parents, turning Jimin, Namjoon, Yoongi, Joe against you just to protect me, you and Jimin fighting. He told me that your dad made him the shield and you and him were like us when it was just me and Jimin before. Everything changed, and I killed them all. I killed them, and I'm sorry, Jungkook. I know I did a terrible thing to you, taking your parents away from you and Jimin fighting. And I've been wanting to say these words that how sorry I am feeling. I know that I can't take it all back, but I'm sorry, Jungkook. I'm sorry. Taehyung sobbed, holding the pillow to his face, trying to contain the sounds of his cries, but Jungkook heard his cries. He stoically stared at the sobbing Taehyung for a while, listening to his sobs, and he sighed, closed his eyes, and gently lifted Taehyung's face. Seeing the tears that covered his face, Jungkook gently wiped the tears as he slowly made a smile. I know now that it wasn't you that killed my parents or those other people. It was the Winter Soldier that killed, not you. Now all I see is a crybaby, he said, and Taehyung sobbed and chuckled, wiping his eyes. Yeah, that is true about that, Taehyung agreed, but he soon made a sad look. Jungkook stared at him, looking deep into his blue eyes. I'm sorry for what happened, Jungkook grinned and slowly rested his forehead against his. I forgive you, Taehyung. It wasn't you. I see that now, that it wasn't you who did those unforgiving crimes. I just wish that I too could make it go away for you, me, and Jimin, he said with a sad smile, and Taehyung made a shy smile. Taehyung then chuckled. I see a smile, Cookie. That's the first time I've ever seen you smile, especially at me. He always wanted to not only have Jungkook look at him, talk to him, but also smile at him. Jungkook chuckled. And for your sake, Taehyung, you do not tell anyone that I did smile, deal? As long as you are here with me and Jimin. Jungkook nodded with a grin. Deal. Taehyung stared at his lips and his eyes, and Jungkook nodded with a teasing smile. Don't worry, I won't punch or try to explode you this time, he said playfully, and Taehyung blushed his cheeks to the crimson color and slowly began to caress his lips with Jungkook's. It lasted for a couple of minutes, and while Jungkook rested his arm around Taehyung's waist and one around his neck, while Taehyung held his metal arm around Jungkook's neck with his metal fingers, stroking Jungkook's hair, which made him want to continue with his flesh hand rubbing Jungkook's back. Both ended the kiss with foreheads touching and eyes marked onto one another, not wanting to leave. We will do it when Jimin gets back, as a welcome home present with forgiveness and reconciliation, Jungkook said. The jealousy of Taehyung having Jimin was gone. Taehyung smiled widely and kissed Jungkook on the lips and nose. I would like that, of us, together, very much. He then stared at the empty spot of his bed and back at Jungkook with a shy look and saw him nod. Smiling, Taehyung lowered himself in bed, straightened the crumbled blanket and sheets and held it up for his new lover. Jungkook, while grinning, he lay down in the bed, holding Taehyung close in his, stroking the healed wounds of burns, scars and bruises that many battles he faced and abuse he endured by Hydra with love and comfort. Hearing Taehyung softly whimpering from not the pain but the memories and fear with guilt, Jungkook subdued his cries softly. It's gonna be okay, Taehyung. They will never hurt you again. Go to sleep now. Go to sleep. Taehyung nodded and sighed, imagining them lying in bed together, holding each other close, having Jungkook by his side, protecting him from his trauma and nightmares, while Jungkook imagined the same for having Taehyung close. The bedroom was soon from awkward to peaceful, serene silence. They came back in the morning from their mission. All of their bodies were racked with wounds, aches, and exhaustion. Jimin, ignoring his sore and wounded body, makes his way to Taehyung's room. As he makes it to check on his friend, he opens the door, stops in his tracks, and smiles at the sight that is held before him. Makes his heart take flight, and ignoring his injured and tired body, Jungkook was sleeping with Taehyung holding him close while Taehyung rested his hand on the empty spot in bed. Jimin walked quickly but quietly to the bed with his hero suit on. He gently placed his shield on the floor and kissed both his friend's foreheads, then walked around to the empty spot and slowly laid on the bed, making a deep and loud exhale, closing his eyes, meeting sleep while having his arm over both Taehyung's and Jungkook's sides. He smiled, feeling a hand stroking his, and smiled. Jungkook, with his eyes still closed, smiled. Welcome home. Jimin, finally meeting sleep, mumbled. Good to be back home, to be with both of you. After a few more hours the two men will awaken, embrace, then talk, then no one will leave the room.